All right, there's several things that I want to talk about today, and of course there's going to be ample opportunity for you to ask whatever questions you may have, and I'm sure there's probably going to be several questions, and we'll try to answer them to the best of our ability. I want to say on the front end of this conversation we're having today that there's still an ongoing investigation being conducted by the State Law Enforcement Division, so I've got to be careful what I say through this process. I'll try my best to answer your questions. And it's not that I'm trying to keep anything from you, but we still need to allow the other investigation to flow, and that way the agents from SLED can go about the community and do the interviews that they need to do and collect the information they need to collect. Let's talk about the first part. And we can go back, and I'm sure there's going to be questions surrounding the date of Sunday, the 28th of September, and around 6:45 p.m. in the community is Squires Gate community on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. As a result of a handful of calls, some of them being a fight call in progress, some of the calls for service being shots fired calls. There were also calls of a man with a gun. Deputies were responding to that community, really not knowing what they would find when they got there. But when they did arrive, they did find an off-duty deputy, William Squires. He's a master sergeant, or was a master sergeant with the sheriff's office. They found him in the community dressed in some of his issued equipment. That would be a vest that had sheriff on it, a weapon, and his ID, his badge, and I believe he had a radio in his possession as well. They also encountered several juvenile boys that were in that community. So, you know, for a few minutes after 6:45, it took those deputies responding to that community, it took them a little while to try to figure out what exactly was going on, based on how the radio calls were coming in for a variety of different things. Through that process of trying to determine you know, what was actually happening, our command duty, we have a command duty officer on call every day, and that's done through rotation. And this particular day, Sunday the 28th, that command duty officer was Lieutenant Craig Washington. He arrived on scene after hearing the call for service and being summoned by the staff sergeant, patrol staff sergeant, that they were unraveling a situation that was very concerning to our patrol supervisors. Therefore, they wanted a command officer on scene. So when Craig got there, he tried his best to try to figure out what was happening based on the information he was getting, and he called me the first time a little after 8 p.m. In that call, he relayed what information he could relay to me based on what information he had. And I told him, I said, well, just keep calling me and giving me information as needed. He called me back, I don't know, another probably 15, 20 minutes later. In the course of those calls, he called me about 5 times, giving me updates on the information. One of the calls towards the end of our conversations that evening was that there were some concerns about the community or from the community that the off-duty officer was under the influence. So based on those concerns, I gave Craig Washington a direct order to take William Squires, also known as Billy, take him to the Hilton Head office on Hilton Head. This would have been somewhere around the 9:30 time frame. Take him to the office and have a data master test, which is also referred to as a breathalyzer test, done on him because of the concerns not only of Craig Washington on the scene, but other members that were there, because I wanted to have a breath alcohol content on that particular off-duty officer at that time. That off-duty officer refused to consent to a breathalyzer test, and Craig Washington was ordered to collect his credentials, his weapons, and he was suspended without pay at that point. That is referenced in what we know in paramilitary instruction and military, that's insubordination. And we do not tolerate insubordination. I know there's been a lot of questions. I know there's been a lot of comments from different folks, either through phone calls or emails or different postings about the importance or questioning the importance of an internal affairs investigation. In this particular case, it's our responsibility to determine what policies have been violated that are required to be followed by officers either on duty or off duty, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because at the end of the day, what we do is we have to report our findings to the Criminal Justice Academy in Columbia. The Criminal Justice Academy in South Carolina retain and own your certification. An officer certification does not belong to them, but belongs to the state of South Carolina, and it's through the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy where all law enforcement officers in the state of South Carolina are certified. So that certification is property of South Carolina. It's our responsibility to do a thorough investigation for policy violations. We report our findings to the Criminal Justice Academy, and if need be, we ask for revocation of that certification. In this particular case, that was done this morning at 9 o'clock. We thoroughly investigated the case. There's not a whole lot left on the internal affairs side. Lieutenant Drayson, he did a champion's job of coming in early Monday morning and starting on this, knowing that we needed to unravel everything in a timely fashion. He was able to do that, thus gives my Chief Deputy, Mike Hatfield, the opportunity this morning at 9 o'clock to continue the paperwork submittal to the Academy. William Squires was brought in this morning at 9, and his classification now, he's terminated from the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office for a variety of policy violations. So he is no longer an employee of the Sheriff's Office. At the time that we suspended him without pay, it was the appropriate thing to do because, again, I want a smooth, flawless, thorough investigation because we are responsible for reporting that. But at the same time, if his certification is revoked, which I'm sure it will be, an officer in South Carolina has the opportunity, if they apply for another law enforcement job anywhere within South Carolina, they have the ability to appeal that revocation. And in an appellate situation on certification, then it's required upon us that we go, and it's Daniel Gorley, our general counsel's responsibility to prosecute that revocation and prosecute that case at the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy in an administrative law court. And then the findings of that court go to the training council, and the training council in South Carolina, their responsibility is to have a final verdict or a finding on that revocation. So this process, where some in the civilian world may not understand the things that we go through, those things are extremely important in how we not only police our communities, but how we police our law enforcement officers in South Carolina. So having said all that, that was our responsibility, and it continues to be our responsibility. The SLED investigation is appropriate because you really don't want the same agency doing both investigations. When we do a policy investigation, we're looking at policies of the Sheriff's Office. SLED is going to look at criminal violations. So they're looking at the criminal violations, and they will report their findings to a solicitor. I think Duffy Stone has asked another solicitor's office to look at the findings on this, and that's his responsibility, and I'll leave that with him. So it's very important that we do two separate investigations, and it's always the best that two agencies are involved in that process. So I'll stop at that point. If you have questions about the process, certification issues and all, we can answer those questions. I can get my Chief Deputy or Daniel to do that. if I don't have the answer to it. But I'll open it now for whatever questions you may have, because there's a lot of information out there, and I don't want to rehash things that don't need to be rehashed. So, yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I have a bit of a two-part question here.
Can you speak up a little bit, because this room is not the best.
Good morning. I have a bit of a two-part question here. What can you tell us about the rumor that the teens had a gun on them? And if the rumor is false, would there be any consequences for those who started it?
Okay, I didn't hear the last part of it.
If the rumor is false about the teens having a gun, will there be any consequences for the ones who may have started it?
Well, those aren't policy issues, and there's some policy issues involving squires, but anything involving the teenagers, that's probably going to be covered in the SLED investigation.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that, and SLED's done it, they've been on the grounds since Monday. So they have been here and they've been actively working this case. And it's my understanding that they are planning to give a full report to the solicitor's office by, I think, Thursday of next week. So they're moving forward at a pretty good pace themselves. But I think that latter part of your question is going to be for SLED.
Sir, Caroline Spikes with Live 5 News. Can you kind of tell me if there are any difference in authorities when it comes to off-duty versus on-duty deputies?
You know, a deputy sheriff, when a deputy sheriff is sworn in, and they're sworn in by me, they're sworn in to be a deputy sheriff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Where deputies are off, there's always on-duty time and off-duty time. That's normal, it's reasonable, it's expected, but their actions as a law enforcement officer is something we require 24/7. Just so you're in an off-duty capacity doesn't mean that you can violate any of our policies. And you know, these officers they get a lot of instruction on that, because we always tell them, and I do when I sit down with them, so whatever you do in your off time will have a heavy impact on your on duty time. So make good decisions on and off duty, because bad decisions have consequences, and this is just an example of it.
Did squires past, like, I guess I looked at some like personnel, and like his past incidents play into this decision to terminate him, or do you guys go by case?
Well, when I looked, I mean, I looked in his personnel file, and you know, he's got a few minor car collisions. He's got one IA, Internal Affairs investigation, back in 2016, and that was on an arrest situation where a person that was arrested claimed that squires had taken his medication from him. All of that was unfounded. He had a March 2021 inquiry. It was not an internal affairs investigation, it was a command inquiry, so his supervisors were looking into it. And it was a traffic stop where one of the persons that were arrested in the traffic stop claimed that too much force had been used by the officers in the traffic stop, and that he had injury. He was taken to the hospital. He did not have any injuries. Based on the body cam video, there was no violation of policy. So those are individual things that happen. I mean, his record, quite honestly, other than one inquiry, an IA in 2016, and a few minor accidents, which is not uncommon for the number of miles we put on patrol cars in the county, his record is fairly clean. He's 19 years with the Sheriff's Office. He was hired in September 11th, 2006. And so he was going on 20 years. He just passed his 19-year mark in September, with very few incidents in his file. He was assigned to our Violent Crimes Task Force. He'd been assigned to that section for a while, and was doing a good job there. And I don't want to go into too much detail. I mean, you're more than welcome to his personnel file. You'll be welcome to have the internal affairs investigation. We cannot release that until SLED has finished their investigation, because an internal affairs investigation, when we interview employees, not civilians, but employees at a sheriff's office, we give them a Garrity warning. And a Garrity warning for us is that you are compelled to answer whatever questions we ask. You're compelled to do the things that we require you to do. In the SLEDS investigation, that's a Miranda issue. So they're completely different. So we cannot release information that was obtained through a Garrity warning. So those things is the reason why most of the IA investigation cannot be released until SLED has finished their investigation, because it would taint their investigation to have information that they're not privy to. So hopefully that kind of answers that question. Questions?
Sarah Smith with WSAB. You know, you just said that this deputy had almost been with the sheriff's office for 2 decades.
Mhm.
And I know that this is an internal, you know, this is an ongoing investigation, so you can't say much. But as the sheriff, what was your reaction to hearing about this, and what can you kind of tell? What's your message to the public about this situation?
You know, I've been in this business a long time, and I've seen a lot of things that people shouldn't see. And, you know, not having any of the video available to me on Sunday evening, you know, when I was first called a little after 8, I was making decisions based on information that was flowing. And this was a fluid scenario at the time. So based on the information that I got, I felt around the 9 o'clock hour, based on concerns, not only of knowing that he was off duty, and knowing that there was, he was suspected of consuming alcohol, and he was armed, and he was wearing one of our, of course, tactical vests. You know, it was time to, all right, let's find out what his blood alcohol level is. And then when he refused to do that, then that's insubordination. That's not tolerated. And then we move forward from there. I saw the video that I think has been streamed throughout the media, throughout Facebook and all the other things. I saw that for the first time about 5 o'clock Monday morning. And I think that came out initially on Nextdoor. And it was provided to me, because I'm not a social media follower, so to speak. You have to send it to me if you want me to see it. And then sometimes I can't figure out how to even open it. But anyway, I saw it for the first time, and honestly, I was appalled about what I saw. Knowing the officer, not really understanding all the circumstances of what led up to that scenario. And there's always 3 sides to every story. I mean, throughout my career, I don't put stock in either side until I've heard all 3 sides, because there's the truth, there's a lie, and somewhere in the middle you'll find fact. And we're fact finders. So looking at that video, it was appalling to look at. And I can also see how the average citizen sees that video and just goes into shock as to what they see. But again, knowing what I know about the investigation today versus what I knew about it on Sunday night and Monday of this week, I'm not saying that the video will ever get better. The video is what it is. And there are circumstances that led up to it. There are circumstances that were dealt with during and things that happened thereafter. But I can tell you from my position, looking at it administratively, there is a host of policy violations. Any and all, in combination or individually, would cause termination of the employee. So, I mean, any and all of it combined is a problem. So, hopefully that answers. Yes, Mitch.
Sheriff, today is the first time that your office is publicly acknowledging the deputy's name. Why didn't you make it public earlier?
Well, you know, my experience doing internal affairs investigations, and then when, of course, the severity of this as it was unfolding, you know, we have several concerns. And, you know, one, of course, is the safety of the community. That's number one. Squires Gate community did not need to be subjected to undue treatment by anyone. So, you know, we wanted to protect the community. Even though if you watch the video, you can kind of figure out where it's at, but you're doing that on your own. If you release that information, You're gonna do it, and it's not coming from us. The officer's name is really not relevant at that point. We know who the officer is, but it's the actions of that officer that we're investigating. It's what led up to what happened during that event, and where we stand today. I mean, when we interview people that are potentially witnesses, we want to interview people that are witnesses to the event, not witnesses because they either know the officer, have a, Billy Squires worked for the sheriff's office for, again, 19 years. There are a lot of people in the community that he's arrested and criminally charged. So we want fact, we don't want opinion. So when you put too much information out there, we get bombarded by those that either have like him and want to say how great he is, don't like him at all, don't have any knowledge or any information as to anything that happened on that particular evening. So we kind of like to go about our investigation with it not being identified to one person. Yeah, I think it's the appropriate time now because this morning at 9 o'clock his employment here at the sheriff's office was terminated. He is a private citizen within Beaufort County, South Carolina. But he is the subject matter of this internal affairs investigation.
Sheriff, what policies did he violate? Now,
Well, I'll go through the policy violations. You got, code of conduct, failure to obey a lawful order by refusing to submit to the data master, conducting himself in an unprofessional manner that did not project and support public respect and cooperation, being under the influence of alcohol in a public place with his judgment impaired, leading to actions which brought discredit and ill repute upon the sheriff's office, attempting or unlawfully arresting regarding a neighborhood dispute where there was no clear threat of bodily injury or death. Code of ethics, failing to deal with the community in a manner that instills respect for law enforcement and inspires confidence and trust. Off-duty firearms policy violation, consuming alcoholic beverages while armed in an off-duty capacity and then presenting this firearm for an unlawful purpose which was outside of the compliance with the sheriff's office use of force policy. Use of force, using force, presentation of a firearm, soft hand, and empty hand techniques against subjects without reasonable suspicion or probable cause. Arrest and detention policy, taking lawful action by attempting to arrest detained juveniles involving a neighborhood dispute where he resides without articulable independent justification known by him at the time. Failing to contact the on-duty supervisor of the call and reassuring himself from a law or recusing himself from a law enforcement action. Communications policy, failing to advise the communication center, which is our dispatch center, either by phone or radio, of what the event was. And body-worn camera policy. Once he put on that vest and started acting in the capacity as an on-duty officer, then he's required to have his body camera on. He did not. The body camera was on the vest, but it was not activated. And that's the list of policy violations.
there's a video that precedes the incident that has, gone sort of viral, where there's a man driving up to the kids in a white vehicle. The aunt of one of the kids has identified this man as Billy Squires. Was this his service vehicle, and is that also an issue? And can you confirm that Squires was the one driving this car?
I know Squires moved his vehicle from his driveway to the side of a road within the community, and of course that's concerning, and it's part of the internal affairs
His service
investigation.
vehicle?
Pardon?
His service vehicle?
His work vehicle, yes, yeah. And all of his equipment and everything's, we have it. He doesn't have anything else.
Now you said that one of the policy violations was he acted without reasonable cause. I know you can't talk to us about the actual investigation, but, that can point to that there weren't any incidents leading up to what we saw in the video of him coming up to those juveniles. Can you give us some insight on that, on what led to it and what led him to talk or walking up to those minors?
I mean, it's a great question. It is a great question. I'm careful how to answer that because of the sled investigation. I mean, there were things that led up to his reaction. I mean, there is an action that happened prior to Squires being involved, and there was a reaction on his part. But I don't know that I should comment on it. I mean, I think it'll all be released. It's just, I just don't want to do anything to taint the other investigation.
And then in terms of moving forward, obviously with the technology that we have today, in these kinds of incidents where people may be abusing their authority or their power, us as citizens, we're able to whip out our phones and take a video. So we're able to kind of secure that, but that has also revealed several officers in the past and law enforcement just nationwide may be violating this policy. So what is y'all's plan moving forward, ensuring that your deputies aren't violating these policies?
You know, I've got over 300 employees. You know, we hire men and women in this profession weekly. Some are cut out for this job, and there are those who are not. And we weed them out quite quickly. And you know, in this situation here, it's difficult to say why he acted the way he did. But we do know that there's information that was provided to him prior to his reaction in the community that concerned him enough that he felt he should get involved. Now, when you're consuming alcohol, and we have the standing policy, you do not police your own neighborhood. Just don't do it. These are the things that result in doing that. And you surely don't get involved in any kind of police action if you've been consuming alcohol. Those things are not good. I don't know if you're the one that sent me the email saying, what is our policy on being logoed and drunk? That was one of the things. Well, I mean, Daniel says it the best. Don't do it. I mean, those things are, and anyone with common sense knows that, and you know, I would like to say, and I think I'm probably 99.9% sure that most of the employees at the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office are blessed with common sense. Sometimes things happen where that common sense is just not working as good as it should. And it leads them into areas to make bad decisions. And again, bad decisions have consequences. And you know, unfortunately for Squires, this is the consequence. I mean, there's other things that may be coming, but I mean, he lost his job in 19 years of service. He only needs 25 years to have his retirement. So.
How well did you know him?
How well? I hired him 19 years ago.
Well, I mean, I figure there's some guys you know better than others.
That makes sense. With 300 employees, I think you're right.
I'm just curious if he was somebody you were, you know, extremely familiar with. I'm sure you're disappointed.
Sure.
So my question really is, you know, was this? I think it's probably a surprise anytime this happens. But how surprised were you that it was Squires?
You know, honestly, again, in my 45 years in law enforcement and almost 27 years as sheriff, nothing really surprises me. I mean, I hate to say it that way, and I'm not downplaying this in any manner, but what I saw was horrible. But we have a lot of good men and women that work at this sheriff's office, both on the enforcement side, the administrative side, our communications center, and this is a tough job for most of them. And it's very unfortunate, and I know the impact that it's had on the rank and file of the rank and file deputies and civilian employees that have seen this video. It's appalling to everyone, regardless if they are best friends or not. You know, I know all of my deputies, but I don't know them as good as I know Mike Hatfield and Daniel Gorley and Matt Averill, because I'm with these guys every day. So I don't get a lot of opportunity to be on patrol with these troops, but I know everything about them. You know, I review their records. I see them quite often, but I don't oversee them every day. I'm not standing over their shoulder as their guiding light every day, because under a rank and file scenario that we have managers in place. And I expect those managers to do their job, which they do. It's just, this is unfortunate because of the look it has. I can understand the community's reaction. I completely understand it. But this is not Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. This is a former officer that worked at the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. And I wish I was that person that could dive into his mental thoughts and tell you why he did what he did, but I can't do it. So I think we dealt with the situation appropriately. We dealt with it in a timely fashion. And we'll continue to monitor and do what needs to be done. What message I give the community? Beaufort County Sheriff's Office is a quality law enforcement agency. We have men and women here that are vested in the community, and they are part of the community, and their sole role in this job is to provide public safety to any and all as fairly and as professionally as we possibly can do it. Don't let this incident shed a bad light on the men and women that serve you daily. We've had a lot of emails. We've had a lot of very vulgar, unnecessary phone calls that our communications center has had to field, our front desk, and the number of emails that have come in through our webpage and things like that. 99% of them are from out of state. We understand what's happening. And so we get it. We see where this is coming from. And it's not uncommon for a Republican sheriff or a Republican anyone in the United States to get that kind of drama. So, but you know what? It doesn't have an impact on us. Things that we expect things, we deal with it, and we move forward.
Sheriff, my last question. Obviously, you've said numerous times today that this is a tough job, which is obvious. And
Sure.
we thank you all so much for your service in protecting the community. And like you said, you weed out those who aren't fit for this field. But also, how do you ensure that people or the deputies who are just as quote unquote tough are also able to be appropriate in how they handle those situations with the amount of force given to them, as opposed to going buck wild with this quote toughness?
Well, you'd have to look at the past as well. I've been in this job a long time. I've been running this office for a long time. I don't recall an incident like this ever at the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. So, and this office has been operational for over 100 years. And so, now look, today, unlike years ago when I started in 1981, the technology wasn't there. There was no opportunity to have a cell phone video. There was no Ring doorbell. There was none of that stuff. Hell, we didn't have cell phones or we had a typewriter. We didn't have computers. But now we've evolved into a society that is dependent upon this stuff, and that's fine. Guess what? We are as dependent as the average day-to-day citizen. We have the technology in place. Lindsay does an awesome job of making sure that we're using technology to put information out. We are in the giving business. We give information freely. Transparency is one of the things that we're very good at. But at the same time, we equip our staff, our responding officers, they have body cameras. We have dash cameras. All of our interview rooms are video audio. Our cars, our interior of our cars are video audio. So, we are doing everything to ensure that these officers, because we're policing the police, at the same time we're policing the general public. And I can assure you, over the years, we've had a lot of people that got a traffic ticket and wanted to make a complaint about the officer being rude and not professional. So we review all of this technology we have, and we invite that person to come in and review it with us, and then they find out, oh, you had a camera? Never mind. What their intent was to try to get out of a ticket. But what it shows is that while we're policing our staff, we're also policing the community, and I want the community to feel good about the fact that we are policing our staff and recording what we do on a day-to-day basis, not only for us to see, but for us to, I mean, because we look at one of the requirements under the body camera video, like dash cam, is that supervisors go in and review calls. So they go in, not even on a complaint ratio, they just go in and take the time to sit down and go through certain deputies' body cam videos and dash cam videos just to kind of analyze if they're doing the right thing, how they're greeting the public, how they're dealing with stressful situations. And I mean, that's a part of the training that they go through. Plus, it's also, these supervisors are required to evaluate these officers on a regular basis. So this is a part of the evaluation process. So, I mean, it works.
Sheriff, where was he drinking?
Pardon?
Where was he drinking?
It would have been in, I think, his home. I think his home, and I think he visited Hudson Seafood to pick up some stuff, and other than that, most of it was right there at home.
And your deputies were the first to arrive at the scene?
Pardon?
Your deputies were the first to arrive at the scene for the first law enforcement. Did they recover a gun at the scene? That was not his service weapon?
We took the duty weapon from Squires. As far as going into any kind of evidence that could be a part of the SLED investigation, probably not gonna go there. You'll have to wait. Yes, ma'am. Chloe?
Oh, sorry, that was my question. The first part.
Oh, that was it?
Well, I
Oh.
guess I'll just ask it. So it's more of a technical question because he refused to take the breathalyzer test, but then some of the policy violations did include being under the influence. So did it involve y'all going into the home and finding evidence of alcohol? I mean, how did
No,
how
I
did
mean,
you
it's,
get to that conclusion?
we have, you know, the deputies that were on scene, you know, they recognize that.
Okay,
Based
so
on
more
their,
of a visual-
yeah, based on their experience. Plus, there's also an admission that alcohol was consumed.
There was an admission. Okay,
I just don't know to what level.
okay,
That's why I wanted the breathalyzer test.
okay.
There's no denial on the consumption of alcohol.
So there was confirmation of consumption of alcohol prior to the breathalyzer?
There was a suspicion of alcohol being consumed, and that level of suspicion is the reason I required Craig Washington to put him in the car and take him down and let's do a breathalyzer test. When he refused to do so, and since then, since that refusal, there's been an admission on his part on the consumption of alcohol.
Is standard procedure to take blood when somebody refuses a breathalyzer? Was blood taken?
Well, if you're gonna refuse a breathalyzer, you're gonna refuse a blood test. I can't make you take a blood test in this kind of situation. This is not a fatality accident, where different requirements are have. This is a internal. So, you know, there was a blood test, given to him at some point, but not that night. The best way for me to gauge blood alcohol content would have been for him to take the breathalyzer at 9:30 p.m. on Sunday. So, but he refused to do so, and that again is what created the environment where he lost his credentials, he was put on suspension, and all of his law enforcement jurisdiction was removed at that point.
If the deputy was a civilian, would he have been arrested at the scene?
I mean, depending on what the circumstances are, I'm not gonna go into that because of a criminal ongoing investigation. That's a good question for SLED.
So there were numerous civilians in the video, and at least one other that had a weapon, supposedly. Are there any, I'm
what was the question again?
There were civilians in the video, and at least supposedly, allegedly, I heard one other bystander that had a weapon.
A bystander that had a weapon?
Yes. I'm assuming that is gonna be part of the sled investigation as opposed to.
Is this an employee of the sheriff's office?
No, he's not an employee. So
That would be a
it's
part
not-
of, that would
not
be a part of
deputy.
that would be part of the sled investigation. Ours was administrative for the employees. And we had several deputies on that scene. Any other questions?
Is the sheriff's office or the solicitor's office working with the family for trauma for the children who had a gun pointed at them? Is there any kind of mental help that you're offering the families and the boys?
I can say no from us. I don't know the answer to that from SLED. We have reached out for interviews, and we have had no interviews with family members. Their desire is not to talk to us.
Have you offered that help?
We haven't got a word in edgewise. I mean, Adam Drayson, the lieutenant did the IA, he tried to set up opportunities to meet and speak with the family members, and there's been no acceptance of that. And I don't know at this point if SLED's been successful with that or not. Questions? That it? Okay, well, thank y'all.